Thank you for joining us today with Chief Constable Andy Marsh and myself, Police and Crime Commissioner for Avon and Somerset, Sue Mountstevens. So we have another Facebook Live now where we are going to discuss policing and COVID-19. So it's been a very long week since the Prime Minister announced very stringent measures, and we all continue to make the necessary changes. But can I take this opportunity of thanking the vast majority of you who've really taken the spirit of this change that we need to do, because it is affecting all of us. And for some of us, it's much tougher than others. And I really do appreciate how many of you have changed your daily lives, your daily behaviour, to be able to make sure that we are doing the very best to protect our National Health Service. So we have a number of questions, and we will have these Facebook regularly if you want to submit further questions. So the whole point is that we are working in partnership. So I'm your Police and Crime Commissioner, Andy is your Chief Constable, and this is your police service. And together we are doing our very best to keep you safe. So Andy, is there anything that you'd like to add before we start?
I've been out supporting officers, working with them in the front line in the last week, and I would also like to echo what you've said about the public support for all of our emergency services, but for the measures that have been taken. So many of our neighbourhoods, our towns, Bristol, Bath, actually are deserted of people. There is a tremendous amount of compliance because I think people understand that we need to stop the transmission of this disease. We need to protect our NHS and save lives. So I'd like to echo what you said in thanking the public. I would like, on behalf of all of the police officers and staff, to say thank you for the support we've had. Thank you for complying. And wasn't it good to hear from the medical experts that hopefully this is a step in the right direction that we're taking yesterday?
So it just goes to show that we can make a difference if we all change our behaviour.
I think we're all on the front line of this. So every single one of us can help stop the spread of this virus.
So some of the things that have been raised with me. So I think local people were appalled that there were reports coming in that some of your officers had been coughed at, spat at, and assaulted. This is for me, this is so beyond belief and disgraceful that it's unfathomable. So how are you dealing with such incidents? How's your force dealing with this?
So over the weekend, 6 police officers were actually bitten, spat at, or someone coughed in their face saying they had COVID in an attempt to evade an arrest or provoke them. None of these assaults on my officers, by the way, happened during the enforcement of the coronavirus regulations. They all happened behind closed doors, usually at domestic violence type incidents, and usually when alcohol was involved. So some, but not all of the people involved in these assaults admitted them and said they were sorry. These are shocking incidents. It's bad enough doing a dangerous job, let alone being assaulted anyway, and then let alone being assaulted when you fear that you might be infected with what is a horrible and unpredictable virus. So it is worrying for the officers that we treat them in the way that we would treat members of the public under these circumstances. They are victims of crime, and so we prosecute the offenders. All of the people have been charged and they're going to court, and we offer the officers every support so that they can be reassured about their health and get back to work as quickly as possible, which is what they want to.
Well, on behalf of local people, can I wish those officers well. Now, we are in challenging times, and we can see that for many, this has brought out the absolute best of most people. You look at the number of people who volunteered, which is phenomenal. But it also brings out the worst in a tiny minority. So I think that we are seeing unscrupulous fraudsters and scammers who are trying to take advantage of this situation. So what we can do to help people get through this?
Well, it's important to remind people of the good things at such a time. And whilst we're talking about a virus, I would talk about an outbreak of kindness and altruism. So we're seeing across the whole force area communities supporting each other, looking after vulnerable people, looking after each other, supporting the NHS and volunteering. We're seeing lots of brilliant things. So the poor behaviour is actually a tiny minority. And in the case of scamming, the sort of criminals that will involve in scamming work to steal money off people, actually they're just adapting and exploiting the situation. Maybe they're trying to sell personal protective equipment which doesn't exist. Maybe they're trying to sell it at vastly exaggerated prices. Maybe they're trying to sell fake cures and all sorts of other scams. What I would say, people are increasingly on the internet. Just be careful of any unsolicited emails. Of course, be careful of any attachments. Don't open them if you don't trust the sender. And there is such a wealth of advice. If you've got a few minutes or even a couple of hours to spare, there's an action fraud website which has got brilliant advice on what the current top 10 most frequent scams are and how you can protect yourself. So if you're at a loose end with what to do, just spend a little bit of time looking at that, and you'll find ways to protect yourselves and your families.
I suppose the real message is only go on trusted websites, isn't it? Because those are the ones that are not going to give you the fake news that the social media is full of. Yeah,
people are trying to exploit the circumstances, and people are trying to exploit fear. So I think that's very good advice. So just use the trusted websites.
Okay, so we've had a lot of questions about local people asking about allotments as part of their daily exercise. There's quite a lot of confusion. What can you do to help them?
So we are giving advice. One of the roles of the police officers and PCSOs that are out there, and we're absolutely maximising the time we're spending in the communities on foot, on bikes, the mounted officers on horses, talking to people. Now, the point of that is to explain what the regulations are, to encourage people to comply with those regulations. So those are the sort of things we're doing. Now, if people would like to know more about them, there's superb information on the BBC website about what the regulations are. There's superb information on the government.com coronavirus website, which says what the regulations are. Now, what we're doing in Avon and Somerset is that we are looking to use a common sense approach about what people should and shouldn't do, working around some essential messaging about 2 metres. We're 2 metres apart now, so avoiding unnecessary travel. But there are lots of things that you can do that you shouldn't be worried about doing.
Okay, so are you saying that what we need to do is apply the common sense and the spirit of the regulations, which the vast majority of us are doing, aren't we?
Yeah, I am saying that, Sue. We're keeping naturally keeping a track on how much enforcement we're doing. I was updated only a few hours ago that we've only issued 23 fixed penalty notices. None of them were issued in areas of ambiguity, grey areas. All of them were things such as someone who'd driven over 100 miles to visit his girlfriend. 4 people who were not in the same household, out in a car. Not only were they out in the car, they refused to go home. So most of those fixed penalty tickets are where people are refusing to take the sensible advice to be encouraged to comply with the regulations. So people using common sense about supporting vulnerable people, about buying essential food, about exercising, all of those things are very straightforward, actually.
I agree with you, and I think that fear that people have, I think we need to understand is that you've only issued 23 fixed notices since last weekend, and we have a population of 1.7 million people, so it's a tiny minority. Yeah,
the story here is quickly thinking on my feet is the 1,699,777 people who are doing their very best to deal with a very difficult situation. And let's remember why they're doing that. Not because the police want them to. They're doing it to protect the NHS, to stay safe and save lives. Now most people really understand that, and with the people that are worrying about the margins of this probably are worrying unnecessarily. We just need to encourage as much common sense compliance as possible, and the reason for doing that is not because we want to spoil anyone's fun or restrict their lives unnecessarily. We're doing it because we want to help the whole of society get out of this crisis as quickly as possible with as little loss of life as possible. That's why we're doing it.
Thank you for that. Now, we noticed that, we talked about it last time, about how many people are contacting the police. I think we had 1,400 calls yesterday on our 101 line, and some of those are not relevant to the police. So what do you think that people should be coming to the police? Are there other places that they can go to?
So if people want advice on the restrictions, I would encourage them to look at the government coronavirus website or the BBC website. It's really, really straightforward. Most what-if scenario type questions are worked through. If people are wanting to report some activity that they think is in contravention of the regulations, then actually we'd rather they didn't ring 101. If a crime's been committed and people are in danger, you should ring 999, obviously. But you can report such circumstances on our website. There's a coronavirus reporting capability. But what I would say is that, and I know this from talking to people, I know this from being out there, we have got lots of police officers and PCSOs out in communities. We're mapping any of regular breaches of the regulations so that we're patrolling in the right areas. We probably don't need people to tell us where these regulations are being breached because we're finding it anyway and giving the good advice and encourage people to stay at home and stay safe.
Okay, thank you very much, Andy. So please remember that Avon and Somerset Police are here to support you. And as Andy has just said, we're here, everyone is doing their absolute best to protect our NHS and keeping us all safe. So we'll be hosting another Facebook Live on Friday at 12:30. So if you have any questions that you want me to ask the Chief Constable, then please let me know. You can go on any sort of social media, Twitter, Facebook, or emailing me at pcc@avonandsomerset.police.uk. So until next time, stay safe.